Hi, this is Stan. Welcome back to the Crow's Nest Railroad. Well, this week we're kind of on the move. I'm over at Bob's house right now. We're going to load up the truck. We're going to head out to the railroad park. We got some track work to do, so I don't know if we'll have time to show you some of that, but I do want you to look behind me over here. Take a look at this. You can see we're all coffeeed up and ready to go. Okay, Bob, I got you on camera. Dude, so this is the next project for our 15-inch gauge. This is looks like a trolley frame.
It is.
Which you hauled down here for the, hopefully we can get this behind the hurl bit.
That's the hope. There'll be bolsters installed, there'll be roof sheathing installed, there will be seats and a floor decking installed, there will be a couple of pockets installed, and then it'll all get painted to look like the other trolley that we've got. So the hope is to get this done within this century, and I'm hoping that I can actually achieve that.
Well, I'll count it joy to get involved and help you wrench on this thing for sure.
You're the man.
Let's take a close-up look at this. Now, was this a powered trolley or was this just a carriage?
This was just a carriage. So underneath here, we cut out much of the underlying support structure in this zone here, so that this will be ready for bolsters that'll probably fall right about where those braces are now.
Okay.
And at that point, we'll end up having to build trucks.
So that we don't have trucks?
We don't have trucks for it now, so we're going to have to build a set of trucks for that. We have prints from Darrell Klompmaker from Little America out of Wisconsin. So with those drawings, we should be able to put together a pair of fabricated trucks for this this car.
Okay. Wow, this is going to be cool. You know, you just don't get to work on this size of equipment very often, so it's kind of thrilling that Bob's dragging me into this all the time. It's just a great project, and we're going to give you plenty of updates. Mr. Bob, let me ask you a question about this. This, you may have been planning a Christmas gift to me, but
Yeah.
I gotta say, I don't want to spoil anything, but this is too big for the Crow's Nest Railroad. So, what's going on here?
Well, what we have is the hurlburt was expanded in gauge to fit the new 15-inch gauge railroad, the Sahuaro Central. In doing so, they had cut the axles and put a sleeve that expanded the axles out. But rather than making sure that it was welded concentrically so that the wheels didn't wobble, they just started welding it. So when they when the sleeve went over
this is the front truck. This is the pony truck on the front?
This is the front truck, the pilot truck as they call it.
Pilot.
So that piece of steel slid over this, and in fact, this was it. So it slid over, this was the piece of steel. They cut the axle, put a piece of steel in there to move the wheels out. But they didn't make sure that it was concentric, so in other words, this rotates with the same center line as this. So it didn't, so it started wobbling like this.
That's right, we were noticing this kind of thing going on.
Exactly right. So the boys decided that I didn't have enough to do and that I should take care of going ahead and pushing the wheels off, making new axles, and reinstalling the whole assembly into the front truck frame. So
are you going to mill out new axles?
I'll have to it's actually on the lathe. You'll machine the lathe axles, and then you'll push the axle out of the wheel in a hydraulic press. You'll size this so it's a press fit into the existing bore of the wheel and press the whole enchilada back together. Plus then, of course, because there's a Zerk fitting in the front, grease flows through the center of the axle up to 2 points here. There's 2 holes in here, one to grease the thrust bearing, the ball bearing thrust bearing, another to grease the spacer washer. So
you're going to have a shaft that
there's
is
a
going
little
to
hole
drill
all
out.
the way through there for about 2 inches. And then you drill 2 holes into the center of that hole, there and there.
That is a very clever way of getting oil in there, grease.
Yeah, it is. There it is. There's the 2 holes. So those are actually all the way through. You can't tell because they're full of grease, but right now you see that goes all the way through the hole. So the hole runs through the center of that. There's a vertical hole here, a vertical hole there, intersecting that center line hole. And so when you put this grease fitting on the center line hole, it pushes grease out, and it comes out those two perpendicular holes.
What does the bearing look like?
The bearing is a little more involved because it is
That
not,
is a little
that is the
box.
housing, but the bearing itself is actually these guys right here. This is the bronze bearing, and it rides on the axle. So this rides up in this housing. The axle rides on top of that, and the thrust bearings ride behind this whole thing. So the thrust bearings ride there. So as this axle shifts forward or right and left, it has a set of ball bearings that are engineered for lateral loads, and it allows it to roll on ball bearings as it goes this way, and it allows it to go on friction bearings as the weight of it's pressing it up.
Wow, so cool. All right, we will check back with you on that. Well, here we are at the Adobe Western. We're out here at one of the subdivisions where we're taking a look at the track. And we've got a problem we're trying to solve, so let's go take a look at some specifics. So here's what we're taking a look at. You can see we've got poured concrete ties here and steel rail. This is a kind of one of the main thoroughfare curves here, and some of the big railroad equipment will not run through here. It'll derail and pinch like crazy. For example, we tried running the big RMI prairie locomotive through here, and it derailed. It was just too tight pinching. So this was set up with not enough extra width in this big turn. It's a fairly tight turn for our railroad here. So we're trying to figure out how we can stretch the gauge open just a little bit, whether we need to replace these concrete ties or whether we can somehow re-gauge the rail. So what we're going to try and do here, we're going to see if we can experiment with replacing some of these concrete ties with some plastic ties, which will allow us to control the gauge. The gauge on these concrete ties is molded into the concrete. The holes are produced in there when the tie is poured, and there's a little plastic insert that goes in there, and so we can't widen the gauge. So what we did before, in this little section here, we were able to spin around these little tie plates, and it pitched the rail just slightly and opened up the gauge just a little bit, but not quite enough. When you set the track at 7.5 inches, that's just too tight in the curve. Really needs to be stretched out 7 5/8, 7 9/16 for some of the bigger locomotives that have more distance between the axles and larger drivers. And we've had some derailments and some pinching in here. So now the question is, what's the best way to deal with these super solid concrete ties? They don't want to move. The rail, everything is locked down, and got to see if we can come up with a fix.
Take just a real easy hit. Oh, okay, it's not gonna. Yeah.
All right, we're starting to make some progress here, pulling out the concrete ties, and we're putting in these composite ties. What we did right in here is about where we were getting derailments on the big locomotives. So, well, as long as we're out here, let's just take a look at this little signal tower. A few years ago, I rebuilt this. I don't remember what vintage it was originally, but it had individual slat siding and everything was just coming apart. And I think, if I remember correctly, it had even blown over off its foundation and had been vandalized. And so we carted it off to my garage. I did a video on portions of it down in the list somewhere, but I put a metal roof on it instead of a composite roof that had originally been on there, and rebuilt all the walls and just basically started over from the skeleton. Redid all the stairs, they were falling apart, and you can see it really needs to be worked over again. The railings here are broken and everything is weather beaten. And I don't understand how things get broken. Does it get vandalized? You can see the glass is gone. Inside I kind of revamped the desk and made some interior details, and there used to be some of the track switches in there, and look at that. That stuff is all blown all over and broken. Kind of a shame. A lot of work goes into it. And glass is missing, and the weather gets in there. Look at all that. That was all sealed up. And look at this, the molding is coming apart. I don't know, is it just the weather out here that beats it up? It's hard to know. Okay, so this is the section here that we got done today. Not a huge amount, but enough, because we're having to rip stuff out and put it back in. And then Bob and I will probably come back out, and maybe 2 days will get us up to the switch there. I think what we're going to do is we're going to run up before we head for home and take a look at the 15-inch. There's a couple things I want to show you up there. And as promised, look at this open gondola car. Now, the trucks are not underneath it, but a few of these are being built, and I showed you the steel frame some weeks ago in a video, and things are coming along, and I'm assuming probably these are the 2 trucks that are going to go underneath this, so you can see it's got a steel frame underneath, sort of a plank gondola shape with some front and back seating. More of these are on the way. That's going to be cool. Get it all fitted and painted up. And then this siding here in the car barn is completed, and looks like it's tied into the main track there, so you can see the work train is here, and the hurlbut and passenger equipment over there. And take a look at this. A few weeks back we saw this upside down. Now it's right side up. This is going to be an electric, running on an AC motor with a generator. This is going to be a backup to the hurlbut. And you can see the AC motors down here and a little jack drive shaft there. So this is underway as well. And if you're new to the channel, this is the gasoline powered hurlbut locomotive that's going to be the workhorse for this 15-inch gauge Sahuaro Central. Well, this is Stan and Bob and Bill. We're all going to say thank you so much for joining us this week. A little bit of a potpourri of action going on here at the Sahuaro Central and Maricopa Life Steamers down at the Adobe Western. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you right here next time.